In the small, fog-shrouded town of Raven Hollow, the past has a way of lingering. Locals speak of strange disappearances, eerie shadows, and a curse tied to the old stone bridge. When a skeptical journalist investigates the chilling rumors, she uncovers a century-old mystery buried in darkness, and something in the hollow that refuses to stay hidden. The Curse of the Stone Bridge. It was a foggy night in October 1883 when the Hawthorne family met their tragic end. Returning home after a harvest festival, their carriage plunged off the stone bridge into the icy river below. When the townsfolk recovered the wreckage, they found the bodies of Mrs. Hawthorne and her 2 young children, but Mr. Hawthorne was missing. According to legend, his final words were a curse. If this town values its bridge over its people, then let it bring ruin to all who cross it. The bridge became a local landmark, but over the years, it gained a darker reputation. Fishermen swore they saw shadowy figures standing on the bridge at night. Hikers reported hearing whispers in the woods nearby. And every decade or so, someone would disappear without a trace near Raven Hollow. Clara's Mission. Clara Hayes adjusted the rearview mirror of her rental car as she drove through the winding roads of Maine. The dense woods closed in on either side, and the thick fog reduced her visibility to mere feet. She had come to Raven Hollow for one reason: to investigate the infamous curse of the stone bridge. As an investigative journalist, Clara prided herself on debunking urban legends and superstitions. Her editor had pitched this assignment as a light piece for the Halloween season, but Clara saw it as another chance to prove herself. The town came into view like a ghostly apparition, its quaint buildings shrouded in mist. Clara pulled into the parking lot of the only inn, the Hollow Hearth Lodge. Whispers in the fog. Clara's first stop was the bridge. The fog thickened as she approached, and the air grew unnaturally cold. She walked along the weathered stone, running her fingers over the carvings left by lovers and vandals over the years. Halfway across, she paused. The silence was absolute. No birds, no rustling leaves, nothing. Then, faintly, she heard it, a whisper. "Turn back." She spun around, but the bridge was empty. Clara shook her head, blaming her imagination, and began snapping photos. The disappearance. Back at the inn, Clara met Ruth, the elderly owner, who offered her a cup of tea. Ruth spoke hesitantly, as if choosing her words carefully. "You're here about the bridge, aren't you?" Ruth asked. Clara nodded. "I've read about the legends, but I'm more interested in the facts. For instance, the disappearance of Alex Harper last month." Ruth's face darkened. Poor Alex. He was just 17. His friends said they dared him to cross the bridge at night. He never came back. Clara leaned forward. "And what do you think happened?" Ruth hesitated. "I think the bridge took him, just like it's taken others before." The historian. The next morning, Clara visited the town's library, where she met Professor William Grayson, a retired historian who had spent decades researching Raven Hollow's past. Grayson handed her a dusty book filled with old photographs and newspaper clippings. "This town has a long history of tragedy," he said. "But the bridge? That's where it all seems to start." The professor showed Clara an entry from 1883 detailing the Hawthorne family's accident. "The father's body was never found," he said. "Some believe he cursed the bridge before disappearing. Others think he became one of the shadows. The shadows appear." That night, Clara returned to the bridge, determined to gather more evidence. She set up a camera on a tripod and began recording. As the fog thickened, she saw movement in her peripheral vision, a flicker of darkness against the mist. Turning, she saw them. Tall, elongated shadows standing at the edge of the woods. Her breath caught in her throat as the shadows moved closer, their forms flickering like candlelight. Clara stumbled back, nearly dropping her camera. When she blinked, the shadows were gone. The artifact. Clara's investigation led her to an old map of Raven Hollow, which marked the original construction site of the bridge. She realized the bridge had been built over a sacred Wabanaki site, specifically a burial ground. With the help of a local archaeologist, Clara uncovered an artifact buried near the bridge. It was a small stone talisman etched with symbols she didn't recognize. That night, Clara dreamt of the shadows. They surrounded her, whispering in a language she couldn't understand. Warnings from the past. Clara woke in a cold sweat, her dreams still vivid. She could feel the icy touch of the shadows, their whispers like a haunting melody that wouldn't leave her mind. Determined to find answers, she sought out Professor Grayson again, this time bringing the talisman with her. When Grayson saw the artifact, his face paled. "Where did you find this?" he demanded, his voice shaking. Clara explained its location near the bridge. Grayson retrieved an ancient ledger from his shelves, pointing to a sketch of the same talisman. "This is Wabanaki," he said, his voice grave. "It's not just a symbol. It's a ward meant to seal something away. By removing it, you may have unleashed whatever it was protecting us from." The disappearance of Alex Harper. Clara delved deeper into Alex Harper's disappearance. She met with his grieving mother, who showed her Alex's journal. The last entry chilled her to the bone. "They told me to come to the bridge. They said they would show me the truth. I'm not afraid. Tonight, I'll go and see what they want." Clara noticed a familiar pattern emerging. Alex wasn't the first person to vanish after claiming to hear voices. Over the decades, countless others had written or spoken about hearing whispers that led them to the bridge. The bridge wasn't just cursed, it was a lure. The shadow strike. That evening, Clara stayed in her room at the Hollow Hearth Lodge, meticulously reviewing her notes. She tried to piece together the puzzle, but exhaustion overtook her. She awoke to a soft tapping at her window. Groggily, she turned to see what it was and froze. A shadowy figure stood just outside, its outline flickering like smoke. Her heart pounded as the figure pressed a hand against the glass. Clara scrambled for her phone to record, but the screen flickered and died. She looked back at the window, and the figure was gone. The next morning, Ruth found Clara's room in disarray, the window wide open. The forgotten history. Clara decided to revisit the historian, this time pressing him about the Wabanaki. Grayson revealed that the Wabanaki tribe had used the land surrounding the bridge for sacred rituals. When settlers arrived, they desecrated the site by constructing the bridge, despite warnings from tribal leaders. "It wasn't just a burial ground," Grayson said. "It was a boundary." The Wabanaki believed it kept the Eshigak, shadow spirits, trapped in their realm. By breaking the boundary, we invited them into ours. Clara asked why the town hadn't abandoned the bridge if it was so dangerous. Grayson sighed. Fear and denial. It's easier to dismiss it as folklore than confront the truth. The bridge calls. Determined to confront the shadows, Clara prepared to visit the bridge at night. Ruth, the innkeeper, tried to stop her. "No one who goes to that bridge at night comes back the same," Ruth warned. Clara ignored her and made her way to the bridge. Armed with a flashlight, camera, and the talisman, she stepped onto the cold stone. The air grew heavier with each step, and the fog thickened until she could barely see. Then came the whispers. "Clara." She froze. The voice wasn't a stranger's. It was her late father's. The shadow's truth. The whispers grew louder, forming words she couldn't ignore. "Come to us, Clara. We can give you what you seek." Suddenly, the shadows appeared, more distinct than ever. They surrounded her, their forms shifting and flickering like smoke in the wind. One of them stepped forward, and for a brief moment, Clara saw a face. Alex Harper's. "Help us," he whispered. Clara realized the shadows weren't just spirits. They were the souls of those who had vanished. Trapped between worlds, they were bound to the curse of the bridge. The ritual. Clara raced back to the historian's home, recounting her experience. Grayson revealed that the talisman wasn't just a ward. It was the key to sealing the rift. If you return it to the boundary and complete the Wabanaki ritual, you might be able to release the trapped souls and banish the Eshigak, he explained. Clara returned to the bridge one last time, reciting the ritual Grayson had translated. As she placed the talisman on the ground, the shadows converged around her, their whispers deafening. For a moment, the world went silent. Then, a blinding light erupted from the talisman, and the shadows dissipated into the mist. The twist. The next morning, Clara woke up in her room at the lodge, unsure if she had succeeded. She turned on the news and saw a headline that chilled her. Raven Hollow Bridge collapses overnight. She returned to the site and found the bridge in ruins. The town was in chaos, but Clara felt a strange sense of peace. The whispers were gone, and the fog had lifted. As she packed her bags to leave Raven Hollow, she noticed something odd in her reflection, a flicker of shadow in her eyes. The curse wasn't broken. It had simply found a new host. Raven Hollow's bridge may have collapsed, but its mysteries remain unsolved. Were the whispers merely the wind, or something darker? Sometimes, the truth is buried not in the past, but in the shadows of our own minds. This is Clara Hayes, signing off for Values of the Past. Until next time, stay curious and stay vigilant.
Thank you for watching this episode from Velours of the Past. If you enjoyed this journey into mystery and intrigue, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when our next tale from the past goes live.